Today we're going to be talking about the best possibility for each political party in a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump 2020 election. So the best case scenario for the president, we're going to start off with that, and then we're going to go into the best case scenario for the Vermont senator in this election. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I've done the best possibility for the president in 2020, then the best possibility for Democrats. But again, the Democrats have a long list. You know, there are at least 35 candidates that could possibly run in the 2020 election. So there's never been one candidate that's defined by all. You could do that in 2016, where Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders were the only two viable options for the 2016 Democratic nomination. But when it comes to 2020, there are over 35 names circulating at the top, whereas in 2013 and 2014, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden were those only top names. There was not a huge list of Democrats that did have a possibility of running, considering a number of them who are up there now first got elected back in 2016, or first got their names out back in 2016. So, again, it's pretty crazy for the Democrats to have that many candidates, and they probably shouldn't run them all. If there's one prominent front runner and you find multiple people who keep taking them down, that'll make them weaker for the general, and it may not be the best thing for that. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this map. Pretty much, we're going to start by filling in the states that never flip, regardless of how much a state has turned towards a political party. South Carolina, I'm actually going to leave up because it was closer than the state of Missouri, which I'm also going to leave up for the sake of being a toss-up seat. So, pretty much a number of these states, Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, of course, Vermont, of course, the district, New York, Illinois, Maine, probably not going to fill in anything just yet. But now we have a pure toss-up map. States decided by less than 20% in 2016, and probably won't be decided by more than 15% in the 2020 election between these two candidates. So when we talk about the best case scenario, keep in mind the Democrats will have a clear advantage because there are a number of states that they could win, whereas a number of states are out of the reach for Republican candidates that isn't going to be as big of a lead. But we know that Bernie Sanders probably isn't going to win every single one of these toss-up races in his best-case scenario, which is why we're going to bring out our handy-dandy, safe, likely, leaning, and toss-up tools, which is pretty cool, I guess. So 182 electoral votes for Bernie Sanders, 86 for Donald Trump. So when we talk about the first few states for the president, we have to look at a number of the states that voted for him back in 2016. That includes states like South Carolina. In his best case, I would put that one as safe in his column. Georgia would have to be likely, Indiana as well, likely, Missouri likely as well. Montana would be safe, North Dakota would be safe, Texas would be likely, it's typically likely, Ohio would be likely, Iowa would be likely, and that pretty much shoots him up to 200 electoral votes. Alaska would be safe in his best case, and now we have 153 electoral votes, too close to call, I guess. So New Mexico would still remain in the Democratic column very narrowly in the president's best case, especially with someone like Bernie Sanders on that side, but Arizona would go to Trump. Florida would go to Trump. North Carolina would go to Trump. A number of these states that went for him back in 2016 would be going to him yet again. New Hampshire, even in his best case, that one I still think Bernie Sanders would have a pretty good hold on. Same thing with Maine at large. I mean, coming from a state like Vermont, having similar the similar ideology and issues that actually work with a number of these voters, it would do pretty well for Bernie Sanders in this state. But still, that second district would go to Donald Trump. Virginia would go to Bernie Sanders, not by a solid margin, but still a good margin. Minnesota, the Midwestern appeal is easily going to help Bernie Sanders here. I still see him narrowly winning in a state like Minnesota when it comes to the 2016 election. The 2020 election, even in Donald Trump's best case. But Nevada could go red. Colorado, that one would be a pure toss-up. But right now, I'll leave that one leaning in the Trump column, and that second district would also be leaning for the Republicans. So now we have 217 electoral votes for Bernie Sanders to 321 for Donald Trump in his best case. So now we're going to move down into the best case scenario for the Democrats. So we're going to have to go ahead and pull out these toss-up tools and essentially just make a number of these states toss-ups again. So 1, 2, 3. Actually, I need to turn off independent because that one's going to make it a little bit more difficult to do this. So sorry about the scrolling so much, but we have to go through each one of these states and flip them respectively for each political party. So just keep going through it. 1, 2, 3 clicks. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh, geez. So yeah, so a number. Oh, I don't know why I flipped Illinois. That's weird. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that second district, of course, is not safe. And then the president hadn't had Montana or Alaska or North Dakota solidly in his column. So I believe this is the map we started off with. 182 electoral votes for Bernie Sanders and 86 for Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and look back at the safe, likely, actually we can go to the safe states first. So the safe states for Bernie Sanders, if he did indeed run in the 2020 election for his best case, that would include states like New Mexico. So those would be safe for the Democratic column. And then we look at the map. The first district in Maine would probably be safe for the Democrats, and Virginia. I mean, actually, that one I'm going to come back to. Yeah, so pretty much all these states would be safe for Bernie Sanders. Now we actually have the likely and leaning states to fill in. So when we come down to, in Bernie Sanders' best case, I would say that states like Georgia would be leaning in his column, but we're not actually going to start there. We'll start off with the likely states for the Democrats: Virginia, Colorado, Nevada, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Maine at large. That second district's leaning in the Bernie Sanders column. 3 shades of blue all in one state. New Hampshire, likely for the Democrats. And that puts the Democrats at 249 electoral votes. Alaska would probably still be likely. Dakota likely. Montana likely as well. South Carolina probably likely. Indiana, even, with Vice President Mike Pence, I'm still going to put that one as likely. Same thing with the state of Missouri, but Florida would be leaning in the Sanders column as well. Again, another toss-up state. North Carolina, in Bernie Sanders' best case, I could see this one leaning into the Democratic column. Wisconsin, I see, is leaning, but Michigan, I could go likely. Pennsylvania could also go a little bit more likely for the Democrats, putting them at 339 electoral votes. Ohio as well could go to the Democrats by a narrow margin. Again, Iowa as well. If Ohio's going, Iowa's going as well. And when we go down to a state like Georgia, that one might actually be a little bit too much. But I'm actually going to put that one in the Trump column very narrowly now. But that second district is going to go to, I don't know why I keep right-clicking, my bad, to Bernie Sanders, and then Arizona, showing a little bit more Democratic tendencies and closer than Georgia in 2016, could go to Bernie Sanders. So the best case scenario for Bernie Sanders finishes off with 359 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 179. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I'll see you all tomorrow.